If you are a B2B service-based business owner and you are looking to gain more clients, create more impact and more revenue in your business, tune in to Amplify Your Marketing Message with Christine Campbell-Rappin. Every week, we're going to take you through how to build an audience of buyers, mastering your marketing message, and making offers that convert consistently. We'll see you all on the inside. Welcome back, everybody. We are talking about two of my favorite things that are often hard to find in combination. We're going to be talking about sales success and in particular leadership as it relates to being a servant leader and creating a momentum, culture, and result of selling strongly. I'm super excited to introduce to you a really interesting gentleman. This is our guest today. This is Doug Drovak. He is a really fascinating guy because he is someone who's in the business of creating sales leaders. Doug, welcome to our show. Super excited to have you with us today.
Great. Thank you, Christine. It's a high honor and privilege to be on your Amplify Your Marketing Message podcast and to meet your listeners.
Welcome, guys. This is it. I want to talk about this because the big elephant in the room for a lot of business owners is, can I get to the result any other way but without having to sell? What do you say when someone says, can I just skip this?
No. No.
Tell me more.
There'll be more. There's one quote that I really gravitated to. There's no problem in an organization more sales can't solve. And nothing happens until somebody sells something. So, listening to some of your podcasts, and you have some about, how do businesses survive. And I think when I listen, 47-ish% of businesses go out of business, or 42%, because they don't have paying clients or profitable clients. So sales is the only function within an organization that adds to profits. Everything else adds to costs, and you need new sales to survive, thrive, and scale your business. And if your business isn't growing, it's on slow motion liquidation.
Guys, I just want you to just take a deep breath, because you might be hyperventilating right about now. Nothing happens in your business until sales happen. And they are. We've heard it before here on this podcast. They're the lifeblood of your organization. And I love that, the slow path to liquidation. I think that's very graphic and accurate. So we all struggle a little bit in the early days of getting into momentum with sales, but you've got a real perspective that servant leadership is a critical component to that. What is servant leadership?
Well, before I answer that, if you've been working in an organization, do team members or employees leave companies?
Yes, sometimes.
Yeah.
Because
they leave more often than not. They leave bad managers.
Yes.
And bad managers don't practice servant leadership. And servant leadership is a management style that sort of unends the pyramid with the boss, the manager on top, flips it upside down. Clients first, then team members, and then the servant leader supports the well-being growth of his team members. Mm-hmm. Because there are a lot of toxic leaders that do not engage in servant leadership, where they put the well-being, growth, happiness, work-life balance of their team members first. Because you can masquerade an organization that has a great culture, but culture trumps strategy each and every time. And in my experience, when I've worked with organizations, it's really about the leader of that sales organization. And when he or she is practicing servant leadership, putting the growth, well-being of their team members, they can attract and retain A players, because A's hire A's, B's hire C's, and C's put you out of business. So when you attract those A players, you want to keep them. And servant sales leadership, when practiced diligently, honestly, with high integrity, attracts those A players and keeps those A players. And they're happier, and their customers are happier.
Yeah, I think that's a really important conversation we should be asking ourselves, because I've observed this in my own world. Who are you attracting? A players, B players, or C players? Because who you attract is always a reflection of the effort, your integrity, how you show up. And if you really want to rise amplify more impact, you've got to look at your bench. And the first person on your bench that you look at is in the mirror. And I love that you talk about the needs to bring the human back, because some of the biggest challenge, and I have a pretty strongly held opinion, that we've lost leadership. We've lost this ability to both deliver the bottom line, which has been a really big push. You know, anybody who's publicly traded in a big org feels that pressure for short-term KPIs, but we've lost also the ability to balance the human and showing up as human and seeing that as a strength. I don't think that's just a sales problem. Would you think it's more broadly held that fix?
More broadly held, not just in sales, every functional area of the organization. And if pockets of the organization, those functional leaders have servant leadership, but the CEO, the board does not, it's doomed to failure. It's got to start at the top, cascade down, and really be a breathing, living philosophy that you practice every day, week, and month. To your point, we are quarterly driven, and you've got to make the numbers, but you can do it with passion, patience, style. I just read, Gen Z's, millennials, would they rather have a $10,000 raise or 2 weeks off?
I'm curious.
Most would rather have 2 weeks off.
Yeah.
And as we went into the pandemic, work from home, and all the stress, team members are asking more of their leaders and of their organizations for work-life balance and to really be engaged in a meaningful, thoughtful, productive way.
Well, I think when I'm talking to my clients who are, we're in the business of creating leaders, that's what essentially small business is. It's a leadership opportunity for you to lead yourself, whether you're a solopreneur or, yes, your team, your clients. It is a role of influence by its very nature. And I am often saying to people, we need to create the leaders of tomorrow because we're not brought up in it in the education system. When we have been under the pressure for so long in the management role, we are managing, not leading. Those are two absolutely different skills. And truthfully, how do we lead when we know that modeling is important, but we might not have the best role models, to your point, all the way through the organization? Where do you start to engage an organization or to engage a leadership group that said, this isn't just good business, it's how we care? And you can't keep putting this on the back burner, because now is the time, if you want to be here 3 months from now, 6 months from now, a year from now, because you will rot from the inside if you keep losing all of your A players, because they will find opportunity elsewhere. How do you start that conversation?
And
I know you do it.
I appeal to, is it more important to start at the top with the C level and get buy-in and commitment, not just lip service, but financial commitment to propagate servant leadership, training, mindset, and culture? Because at the end of the day, when your team members, your A players are more engaged, customer success, retention, profits, you keep your A players, and you're not constantly spinning and trying to rehire and post on Indeed. So I appeal to the financial component and then gain commitment from those C-level executives. Is it just lip service? Is it a fad? You read an executive white paper on servant leadership, or do you really have problems in the organization of attracting, retaining, keeping those A players? And why is that? And I can share with you that servant leadership model, philosophy, and culture, people are happier, they stay longer, they work longer, they delight their customers, and it's just good business sense and good business practice.
Yeah, I think it is smart money. I'm curious, if you are listening here in the audience and would love to take on Dov's perspective here, how do you know, or what questions should you be asking yourself that says, am I a good servant leader? How do you know?
Well, there's, a variety of different definitions of servant leadership, but the pillars are, number one, really creating that culture of support, passion, and putting the well-being of your team members first and supporting and serving them. Listening with empathy, passion, healing, being self-aware, really encouraging them however they do their performance review, quarterly, monthly, but really having one-on-one coaching sessions, dialogues that are encouraging the pillars and tenets of servant leadership, and really getting that to pervade throughout the organization. But how do you suit up and show up as a leader? Are you committed? And are you committed to the short-term and long-term success of your team members?
I love how elegantly simple this is, which everyone knows is the way I see the world. And I will kind of bring the opposite end to that. That's what you should be looking for. I will tell you, if you're not, here's what it sounds like. I don't have the bandwidth for my team. I don't have capacity to return your phone calls. And it means that you are constantly moving your one-to-one meetings because you have other more strategic priorities. Because those are the three things that I see all the time from people who say, I am the leader and I'm a loved leader. And I say, check yourself at the door. Those habits might be totally slipping your awareness. But I will tell you, from that A-player game, you're running for the door. Because if you can't trust your leader to take your call, prioritize your need for support, you might need to look a little closer at the definition that Doug has provided. And I hope that when you find the gap, you lean into the gap and say, I can do better. And I will choose to do better, because it is so simple to care. And I think caring is got to be the biggest superpower, because we all know, and the bottom line knows, you will do more for people that you care about if you feel connected to the purpose, vision, and commitment of your peer group than clocking in and clocking out and taking a paycheck home every 2 to 4 weeks, depending on where you live in the world. It's so simple. So how do you create this culture? Because if you're listening and you're going, I want that, a little uncomfortable, I may have a gap here. What do you think we start with to make small changes that start to cascade big ripples?
Start if you're a sales leader or another leader within a functional area of the organization, take buy the book on servant leadership, educate yourself, do a self-assessment. Am I a servant leader? What is the culture that I've created for my organization and my team? And measure, rinse, and repeat, and look for how servant leadership has grown the top line, bottom line, retention. Because whenever you can add some of those metrics to servant leadership, it really resonates in terms of a business case if you're bringing it up to the C-level for larger deployment of the servant leadership model.
Self-awareness, I love that you chose to start there, because a lot of people take the easy route to say culture is what HR does. Culture is the statement of purpose, values, mission that is on the boardroom wall or in the front lobby of your building, and they pass the buck. That culture is derived from the habits. And I think particularly we're talking about sales orgs here. I think that I've observed in many companies, small and large, there's a different culture for those in the building and different culture in sales. And sometimes that is the elephant in the room. When you're looking at the lens that you play, because you play specifically about servant sales leadership, how do we ensure that the sales org is a healthy one, knowing where we started, which is everybody's responsibility is to sell. Sales is the heartbeat of your business. Without it, you don't have it. But sales often has a different culture than the rest of companies. How do you start to bring that into alignment and really bring the respect, perspective, and gains to a sales director, VP, someone in a leadership role?
It all starts with that sales leader or sales director. What is their leadership management philosophy? Have they ever gone through any cultural sensitivity, ESG, diversity? Because those are pillars of servant leadership, being respectful of other people and their beliefs and attitudes. But really, to your point, checking their ego in the door, and are they really committed to the overarching principle of servant leadership, which is put others and their needs above yours and really get to know them, and in the one-on-ones and the weekly, monthly coaching calls, and perhaps, buying the book, the seminal book on servant leadership that came out in the 70s by Robert Greenleaf. He's really the author of and the creator of servant leadership. Is buy that book, read it, but really self-assessing. Do you have elements of your leadership style that adhere and align with the core principles of servant leadership? And even if you don't, become a student of servant leadership, buy the book, and then start practicing those principles of honesty, integrity, listening, putting other people's needs, desires, passions first, and then aligning your talent with the actual servant leadership model.
I love how customizable this is, because I think one of the big challenges we get in sales is we incentivize sales on pretty traditional elements, right? The carrot, the incentives, the KPIs, the bonuses, the commissions, and they are really often monetary driven. Not always, there's a lot of other fun things that get added, but a lot of people are saying, show me the money. It's interesting that I talk about the individuality, because one of the things I think can be the most simplest way to step into servant leadership is saying, we have a budget to reward you. How would you like to be rewarded? And have the flexibility, because for some people in the organization, they might be really happy with some branded merchandise and say, hey, you know what, I'm really proud of this organization. I would really love to do that. And I'm happy to spend my money on company swag. Other people might say, I spend a lot of time on the road. I would really love a family night to a ball game with my kids. Or you know what, I would like to do a course or something else, like unrelated to the business, like something that really lights them up. But this simple ask of, how do you want to be seen?
Yeah, and
How
I
can
would
we
say,
appreciate you is such a powerful statement, and it's customizable. And yet HR might go crazy, but really that's what servant leadership is in action.
yeah, if I'm a sales leader or director, I'm responsible for my team's well-being and growth. And if I haven't been exposed to servant leadership, I want to give some really tactical blocking and tackling ideas for your listeners. Buy the book. You can buy it for probably $10 used on eBay or Amazon. Robert K. Greenleaf, Servant Leadership. Read it, study it. And how I conducted when I was managing global sales teams, I'd have my Monday morning huddle. Then I'd go into 30-minute one-on-one with my directors and downstream team members and simply explain and expose them. We're going to start incorporating some of these principles of servant leadership as a sales organization, but then one-on-one. I'm going to buy you a book. I'd like you to read it. Then we're going to have a book club. Then on Friday, we would have Aloha Friday, where we'd come, no bad news, just good news. Tell me about your wins. Have a cocktail, 3:00 on a Friday afternoon, and then have a brief discussion on a chapter within servant leadership. That's how you can get it viral within your sales organization as a sales leader or director for $10 or less. But you become a student of it first, and then see what resonates with you. What are you practicing currently that organically you came to the organization as the sales leader with elements of servant leadership, and then populate it throughout the culture.
I
And
love
then
how
to
you
your
talked
point,
about
reward people.
Yeah. I love how you talked about getting the buy-in of this, because this is going to be the critical piece, which is, hey, I'm going to lead from the front. I want to have you on the team. That means we're going to have a dialogue in a set format. You can have expectations. And what it also really means, it's almost that 360 review, which I know we're very in fashion and then not in fashion in terms of the leadership concepts. But the concept is we both have to have the feedback loop, because we are both people. It's not just, I think servant leadership is not just about people saying, I'm a human. It's also, you need to respect me as such. I am a leader. I hold responsibility for some decision-making capacity, but it doesn't mean that I'm also not still juggling all my humanness in my role as well. And so I love that you say buy-in for $10 and less, simple structure, and saying, let's commit.
And
Commit
Christine, you had a great point there.
Yeah.
Two of the foundational tenets of servant leadership is the leader has ego deflation, non-egotistical and decentralized. Servant leadership is not micromanaging. It's about empowerment, trust, and respect.
And I think honestly, if you're listening to this, and I know I've got some real big concerns about that younger demographic that says, I don't want to step into leadership because I see it as an unfair trade. I'd rather take 2 weeks holiday from that stat report that you read. I always think in my role as a business leader and as a mentor who helps and supports business leaders create other leaders in their organization, I said, I want to change the game. I want to see leadership as fun. I want to bring the human back into the business. And I want to say, together, we are capable of doing amazing things. How do we be amazing together? And that does not mean that we don't have crucial conversations, strong accountability, and a commitment to KPIs. All of that is possible when we say, stop hiding behind egos and unfortunate decision-making and just choose to evolve. I want to know, Doug, from your perspective, because I ask all my guests here, what's working for you right now in your business to amplify, to bring in people, to actually be the change maker who's helping people boost their sales results with servant sales leadership in their company cultures?
So some of the things I suggested is expose yourself to some of the ideas, tenets by Greenleaf in his seminal book, Servant Leadership. But maybe a little off topic. What I've really been getting into the last 3 months is AI. I just attended a business AI for business, a 3-day seminar, and I was in tech sales, and I started back in the pre-first inning of the internet back in '91 in Austin, Texas, and I saw what that decade did with Windows and the pipe getting fatter and going from dial-up modems to a fat pipe. I can tell you, AI as a sales leader, a sales professional, you are in your business, whatever that is. But the second business I highly suggest is AI. It's going to by a factor of 100x. For example, ChatGPT, Claude, using that tool to type in buyer personas, customizing emails, Tome, which is Tome, which is an AI tool that builds PowerPoint presentations, being creative, Suno, Suno, a free AI jingle. So if you're going to a client presentation, so just be mindful first and foremost of servant leadership, but don't be Flintstones, be Jetsons, and be mindful of the AI tsunami that's happening. And that if you are a sales leader, director, a sales professional, and you haven't put your toe in the water and start to become a student of AI, you're going to get bowled over.
I couldn't agree more with that. And I think there's a really exciting, I saw some great opportunities for some really big national organizations in Canada. I went to see some of their TED Talks around AI and what it would mean for their sales org particularly. And I do agree, there's going to be so many great advantages from a research, from a speed, from a, Salesforce perspective, and getting some of the admin that is drowning sales teams all over the org, saying, I want you to bring your human to this. I want you to bring your ability to reason. I want you to be able to build the relationships, because that's really the human that's going to make you excel in a really digital funded backstory. So Doug, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you here. And I guess, how do people find you, learn more about servant sales leadership and the work you're specifically doing at the Sales Coaching Institute?
Thank you. You can go to my website, salescoach.us. Call me directly on my mobile number, 847-359-6969, or my email is doug@dougdvorak.com, doug@dougdvorak.com. Thank you, Christine. It's been a high honor and privilege to be with you and your listeners.
Absolutely, guys. This is it. We've been talking today about boosting your sales with servant leadership. We have challenged you to recognize that sales is everybody's responsibility. Without it, you're on life support. Look in the mirror, drop the ego, care about people, and recognize that it starts when you audit. You've got some resources, 10 minutes a day, and drop this excuse and care about your teams. Your bottom line will thank you, and so will the people that work for you. We will catch you all on our next episode. Doug, thank you for being our guest today. We will see all of you on our next episode. We'll see you there. That's a wrap on another amazing episode of Amplify Your Marketing Message with me, your host, Christine Campbell-Rappin. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform so you don't miss another great episode. And be sure to visit christinecampbellrappin.com/podcast to get a free resource on how to master your marketing message. We'll see you all on our next episode.